name's Kayvan. I'm the Artist Relations Director at Genius, formerly known as Rap Genius. I have been booking, interviewing, and creating content with Genius for the past 5 years now. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do at Genius and what Artist Relations is. First and foremost, shout out to Fiverr. Thank you so much for having me as a part of this. And the rest of this programming is really, really tight. Make sure you tune in for it if you haven't thought about doing so yet. And if you're not active on the platform as well, get in there. If you're an independent artist or an emerging artist who actually needs stuff done at a decent price, at a high quality, Fiverr is a great place to start looking for some of those pieces that you need along the way, especially when it comes to the creative aspect of things. I actually used Fiverr myself for my Twitch emotes, which if you tune into Kayvan MD on Twitch, you'll see as well. So again, shout out to Fiverr. Thank you so much for having me. As we get started, I'm just going to start from the beginning and tell you guys a little bit about me and how I got into artist relations and how I got into my position at Genius in the first place as well. So I've always been a music fan really since I was a kid. Most of my core memories kind of revolve around music or songs or listening to them or singing along to them. I was a violinist from the age of probably about 6 years old to 7 years old up until now. I still play. It's in the back behind me over there, but much less. I kind of, on leaving England, I'd really started writing songs. And so for me, I started as a songwriter, started as an artist. And when I got to college, that's really what I was doing. I thought I'd be doing that all the time. That was really like my main goal, was to make and release music. And I did it pretty successfully for a little bit until I realized the people I had around me did not necessarily have my best interests at heart. And so for me, the switch from being in the creative side to being in the business side was something that kind of happened organically over time. I think initially it was a bit of a selfish thing in me just wanting to be able to figure out how to do all of the other parts of this so that I wouldn't need to rely on anyone else to help me achieve my goals or bring my vision to life. And then eventually it kind of transformed into me wanting to help other artists become the best version of themselves and to help bring their visions to life. Or at least help tell the story in a way that was reflective of who they actually are and what the art meant to them. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we're talking about Genius and what I do there. But in my management stuff, like it's very much about like bringing the artist out truly and not forcing anything onto them. So that's kind of how it's changed for me. But as far as my career path goes, so I was an artist first, stepped back, started doing internships at studios, learning how to run sessions, learning from producers. I interned at a sync licensing company and kind of saw how running a sync licensing library worked and all the metadata stuff and just updating and uploading. After that, I graduated from school. My first job out of school, which I mean, technically was the North Face because I was working at the North Face and I helped open a store and sell coats for a little bit. My first music industry job was at Creative Artists Agency, which is one of the premier talent agencies in the world. Tons of clients across all forms of entertainment, essentially. And I started at the front desk. So initially I went in and I was just like, I just want to get my foot in the door. I don't really care what I'm doing necessarily. I just want to be working in the industry and be getting experience. So I started at front desk, answering phone calls, directing phone calls, cleaning the kitchen, putting the dishes away, like all that kind of fun stuff. And then started to take on additional work from assistants where I could. If there was anything that I could help them with, I was just like, yo, like I'm happy to do some extra work if you need help with it. If you don't have time, if you got other stuff to work on, if it's the easy stuff that you don't really want to do, like I'll just do it. So I started doing a lot of stuff like that at the front desk while I was answering phones and in between. And eventually I got promoted to being an agent's assistant. So after 2 months, I started working on my first agent's desk, which was in the country space, booking everything west of the Mississippi. So that's basically the entire western half of the United States, from anywhere from like clubs to theaters, amphitheaters, and arenas and casinos. So it was really like, some lower value shows all the way up to like $1.5 million guarantee for an artist on a show, or like an arena tour, and like a set run of dates, which was a ton of experience for me. I learned a lot very quickly about booking, which then translated further into what I do at Genius. But also just in dealing with multiple teams and dealing with really high pressure situations and a lot of and a high volume of work coming in and out every single day. It also taught me how to be super organized, which now, even to this day, I keep a handwritten list of things that I need to do every day, which is something I learned from being at CAA as well. From CAA, I started to do media stuff and manage artists while I was still working as an assistant. So I was doing all my assistant work all day, usually from like 9 o'clock in the morning until about 9 or 10 p.m. at night. But then in between that, like on the way to work in the car, on the way home, like on my lunch break, I was either writing or listening to submissions or talking to artists and just building my network of artists that I knew and was supporting, and also managers and really just anybody that I could bring value to. I tried to really build my network and focus on building my network at that point in my life. I realized pretty quickly that I didn't want to be in live touring necessarily. I didn't really want to be an agent. So that path for me felt like a really, really long, difficult thing that I did not really have the passion for. Whereas I had started to talk to managers and really understand that, like, all right, management is kind of cool. Like, I kind of love the challenge of building an artist from scratch. Let me see if maybe I can do that. So I found my first 2 clients when I was working as an agent's assistant. I'm still with them today. And it's been a really, really cool experience to help an artist grow, or help 2 artists grow into what I feel like is almost the best version of themselves, which is why I'm still super passionate about it and love management. I went to school for music business, which I think gave me a really well-rounded understanding of the music industry, which I also kind of coming into management was like, all right, like I can at least help these artists figure out what they need to do next. And help them figure out the best ways to move forward, which I still feel pretty good about today. And I went to Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, so you should definitely check it out if you are interested in going into that field. It's a really good school for it. They have a really great program, and it's a great place to get your feet wet in the industry as well. So back to career path, I was at CAA. I was doing freelance stuff for Good Music All Day, writing my Fresh Picks playlist. Well, my Fresh Picks segment, which is now a playlist on Audio Mac, but initially it was just like 5 artists a week from the submissions that I really liked and thought we should support. And it was actually through things like that I was able to find people like Jack Harlow and be one of the first, like, honestly, like he was like 15 years old. I remember getting the email and listening to the music and being like, this kid's super talented. So I was able to get in really early supporting artists like that, like Nav, Sylvan LaCue, Saba, some others, but I honestly can't even remember. There's so many artists that I like really just enjoyed early on because the music was good, that I ended up posting about, and now I've been able to kind of see come full circle, which is tight. Like, that's my favorite part about this. So did that, quit, started throwing my own shows in Nashville, just paying for the venue out of pocket. Had great success with throwing curated live shows in Nashville, Tennessee, and then ended up doing more collaborative shows as well. So for a while, I was really just focused on curating both playlists, editorial posts, and then shows and live events. And that eventually turned into me, flying up to New York and meeting people and networking and just being like, look, like, what can I do to help you guys? What can I do to amplify what you're doing? Do you have artists that you can put me onto that I should be listening to and supporting? And then eventually I realized, like, there was not the highest ceiling for me in Nashville, and I wanted to do more than I think I could get done there. And so I started coming to New York and just networking and letting people know I was going to move here. I met Rob, who's now my current boss, on one of my last trips up, and I just kind of told him, like, I'm down for anything. Like, I just want to work in the industry in New York, be around hip hop and R&B, which is 2 genres that I've loved deeply my entire life. And if that means I've got to get coffee for people or whatever, like, I don't care. Like, I just want to come here and work. And so, I didn't really think anything would come of it. I left. I got an email from Rob 2 weeks later that was like, hey, we're opening this job, which was Artist Relations Associate at Genius. We haven't had it before, so you should definitely apply. I applied immediately, like literally got the email and like had my application in like maybe 30, 40 minutes later. They sent me a take home. I sent back 9 pages on Monday. They sent it to me on Friday. But I just really wanted the job, and I wanted to demonstrate how much I wanted it. And so I found out I got the job the day I was leaving Nashville. It was amazing. I have now been at Genius for 5 years and have been promoted 3 or 4 times from associate to director. And it's really crazy to think about. I just passed my 5-year anniversary like last week. And it's really crazy to think about how much my job has changed in the years that I've been there. Like, at first it was just booking predominantly for Verified. And then I started doing interviews for Verified and Deconstructed because I'm a producer as well. So I really understood like producing. And so for a while it was just me and Rob, and I was doing a lot of interviews. Like, some weeks, especially if it was out of office, like some weeks, like 10 shoots a week, maybe. And that's a lot. There's a lot of interviews. So our team expanded. I started to move more into content strategy, keeping an eye on like how much we had backed up, how much we needed, what series we needed. Helped launch a couple series like Open Mic, which is really something that I was super passionate about when we were talking about it internally. And then when it came time to pitching and figuring out artists for it, I very much loved being a part of launching that series. And even now, like looking at it, it's one of our biggest series. A lot of our biggest videos are open mic performances. And I just think that's amazing. Like, it's really, really cool to have been a part of that. As we transitioned further, I got more into branded content. So I've been doing a lot of really cool branded content partnerships. I've done a lot of really amazing videos, like the Burberry one with Snow Allegra is one of my favorite. And then we did Genius Live for a little bit, which was our live interactive show series throughout the pandemic, which I was booking for, which kind of allowed me to get back into live touring a little bit with live music, which was really cool. And then, now I'm working on our new project moving forward as well, which will allow us to work even closer with artists, which I'm super excited to get started with. We have a new client who's got new music coming out soon that I can't wait to talk about and tell everybody about, but I can't yet. So keep an eye out for announcements about that stuff too. But yeah, that is kind of like in a nutshell how I've gone from the beginning of my career to here. It's been a lot of just doing stuff and trying to figure things out. Everything that I do on Twitch and with Discord now and on TikTok is just stuff that I've tried. And if it works, then I continue to do it. That's again kind of the way that I've been guided through my career, is just trying things, figuring out what works, and then doubling down on the things that work and trying to build from there. Let's talk a little bit about Genius though. So Genius's mission and how it resonates with me, I think, goes back to telling artists stories candidly and accurately. I remember seeing my first piece of Genius content, I think was Rob speaking with 2 Chainz and Lil Wayne about their joint album, which, we don't all talk about now, but at the time it was just the tone of the interview and the way that he spoke to these artists was so, like, I'd never seen Lil Wayne as just a human, and that's not I'm not a human being joke, but it definitely was like one of those things where, like, Lil Wayne was this icon, this idol, and I'd never really seen him in this human light before through interview. And I think that was something that always really attracted me, especially to Rob Markman's interviews, but definitely to the content that Genius was making, was just that it was so humanizing, and it was such a candid way of talking to and finding out information from an artist. And as I started to get into interviewing, that was definitely one of my favorite things about it too, was that I've been able to have these really, really candid conversations with people about what's inspired their art and why it's important to them. And so I think, one of the things that Genius has always done so well, and one of the things that I love the most about it, is that aspect of things, is that it's not about sensationalizing little things in these songs, but really putting context behind the stories that inspired the music and the art in the first place, and even the person. And that's one of my favorite things, is really getting into like who someone is and why they are the way they are and why they think the way they think. So I think for me, that's what Genius's mission feels like, is this candid and open and honest conversation around art and what inspires it and what inspires the people who make it. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I love what I do at the place that I do it at. I think artist relations to me is kind of all encompassing, like it's not necessarily just dealing with artists all the time, but it is predominantly dealing with them, especially in interviews and shoot spaces. It's making them comfortable and making sure that they know that they're appreciated and that they have the space to speak how they want to speak and about what they want to speak about. So, in interviews, it's if I ask a question, they don't want to talk about it. All right, cool. We'll move on. Let's figure out a different way to talk about this lyric or talk about this inspiration. We don't have to force anything. We're not trying to trap you in a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I think a core aspect of this is making artists feel comfortable with the brand from the moment they step foot in the space. Like I always tell people, like, I really have like a 5-minute window from meeting an artist and their team to them being in the interview chair for them to feel comfortable with me and to feel comfortable with the crew around us. So I think that's maybe the best way of putting it. It's like, when someone comes into the office that's artist related, whether they're on their team or if it's them or if it's a manager or their publicist, like, it's making them feel like they're all welcome and special in the space. And then outside of that, there's way more, like it's dealing with emails and inquiries and like issues coming in from the site or on lyrics, or if lyrics leak, or if songs go up early, or if someone sees something they don't like, it's dealing with everything that is artist facing at all. Like if anybody needs anything who's on an artist team and they reach out to artist relations at Genius, like one of us on the team is going to be handling that first and foremost. Rob always puts it like we're kind of like the front line in a way, like we're kind of the first responders of Genius. If anybody on the artist side of things needs anything. As far as what my day-to-day looks like, it's a lot of emailing. It's a lot of Zoom meetings at this point. It changes pretty frequently because of the things that I work on. I get a lot of new projects across my desk, and with that, I think there are maybe changes to my regular schedule that happen pretty frequently. But for the most part, it's being in team meetings. It's interacting with other teams on the Genius side, figuring out what we're working on, how we can work with talent, what that looks like. It's pricing on campaigns and potential talent partnerships. It's a lot of like emailing and thinking and directional lists, and then on the other side of it, it's really like scouting artists and finding things. It's like researching and looking for like what's next and what people are listening to, and kind of figuring out why as well, which is really just what I enjoy doing. So it doesn't really feel like a crazy day-to-day workflow. Like it's very similar day-to-day, but it's all stuff that I really enjoy doing, so it's a lot of fun. What role does my work play in an artist's career journey? I think that varies on the artist, right? So for some people, it's been very impactful. I can't really pretend like it hasn't. Some of the stuff that's gone viral or helped an artist's song really go to the next level. Like I think one good example is Rod Wave with Hard on Ice. That song became a bit of a sensation through one of our open mic performances, which actually went viral and I think brought a lot more ears and eyes to a song. So in some senses, it plays a big role because we have provided kind of a platform and a megaphone in some senses for certain artists and certain songs to take on an entirely new life, especially through viral content and through short form video content and our content being repurposed on platforms and other platforms. But I don't know that I think of it like that necessarily on the day-to-day. Like when I look at it zoomed out a little bit, yeah, but on a day-to-day standpoint, I think it's more just being able to support artists throughout their career journey. And for me personally, because I do a lot of stuff outside of Genius that is more so focused on independent and emerging talent at a very small level, I think for me it's maybe more being there the whole time and having the overview of the entire career path. Like I love to see something grow from a very early stage and it get bigger and kind of see what happens and then figure out how I can fit in throughout that journey. And I do think that the other people in artist relations feel the same way as well. Like it doesn't feel as though I don't think we're sitting around being like, oh, we're the reason that this is like big, we're the reason this broke. Like that's not how it feels for us. But I think when we can look back and reflect on something and know we had an impact on an artist's career, it feels really good. You know what I mean? Like I think that's something we're all proud of, especially when something performs really well. When we pick something that we know should perform well and it does, I think that's where it really feels like we've been a part in the career journey more than anything. Or, when it's referenced in things, like that's the other cool thing is too, like sometimes people will reference things in other interviews or talk about it or like do retrospectives, and that kind of stuff is really cool to see as well. The coolest experience I've had so far in the role, there's been so many, honestly. I think, and this is a personal favorite and I'll always feel this way, I got to go to the Revenge of the Dreamers sessions, which was the Dreamville collaborative sessions with like J. Cole and all of their roster of clients, and then a bunch of other really incredibly talented artists and producers, all just in the one space in Atlanta. Just outside of Atlanta at Tree Sounds. Shout out to them, one of the incredible legendary studios in the Atlanta area. And I got to just be a fly on the wall and sit there in the sessions and like be around some of my favorite artists of all time, some of my favorite producers of all time. I got to meet some of my favorite producers of all time, and it was just like such an inspiring experience, while at the same time being extremely relaxed. Like there was no egos in there, and it was just like a beautiful creative experience. I think I needed it in the time of my career to just like reinvigorate me from a creative standpoint, and I think it did. It just really inspired me a lot, and kind of honestly really inspired me to build community first and foremost, and focus on that as a way to grow everything that I'm doing. Most rewarding part of my job, like I said, is probably just seeing the impact, like being able to look at something and be like, yo, like I was early on that and it killed, and it did extremely well. Like, I think when I look at Genius content, like 3 of the biggest videos we've ever done, YNW Melly, Murder on My Mind, Open Mic was something that I already fought for internally. Pop Smoke, not Pop Smoke, Lil TJ and Polo G, Pop Out, Open Mic, which is like one of our other biggest videos of all time, was also something that I pitched and worked with John Vincent, Columbia Records, shout out to him, on putting together. And this was like pretty early on for both of us, I think. So it was a really big win for both of us when it worked out. And then the other one being Boy With You Toxic, which is something that we did recently that just like, I don't know that any of us were expecting to be as big as it is, but is now like our second most viewed video of all time. So I'm personally really rewarded knowing we've done something that maybe might have been a bit of a risk that's worked. And for me, it's been very fulfilling to be able to do things and push for things that maybe feel a little bit out of the box or feel like aren't necessarily what everybody wants, and then see it work. Like that's definitely it for me. And then, do I have any advice for people who want to work on the business? Yes. My advice for people who want to work on the business side of music instead of being the ones on stage is to just do things. Whatever it is that you want to do in the industry, there's not a reason that you can't just be doing it on your own. It's harder, it'll take longer, but that experience is what you need, and you'll learn the most from the experience of doing it, as opposed to, like, I went to school for music industry, and it gave me a well-rounded knowledge of the music industry and the history of the music industry. That being said, I really feel like I learned the most from doing, and I think the music industry is an industry where if you just do stuff a lot, you'll pick it up. If you're willing to learn and you listen and you don't have an ego and you just go into things knowing like, hey, like I need to learn more about this and I want to learn more about this, you'll be fine. I think it's kind of tough because it's not really a meritocracy. So I don't want to be like, if you're just good at what you do, you'll make it in the music industry. It's not necessarily the case. Networking is a big part of it, and building a community around you is a big part of it. But I do think doing things and just taking the jump and taking the leap and like really trying to make something for yourself or building your own platform will make it easier for you to have leverage going into these jobs or going into this industry. Still, so you don't have to be an assistant. You know what I mean? Like maybe you can skip that part and just demonstrate that you've been able to do something on your own. So that would be my best advice, I think, for people who want to work on the business side of music, is to just do as much as you can and network as much as you can. All right, a couple more things. So did the pandemic change my focus or the way I work/operate? If so, how? It gave me more time. I think that is probably the biggest change the pandemic made for me. Like I went from having to commute to an office every single day to now I don't, and I have an extra hour and a half in the morning and evening that I don't have to commute in. I feel like I'm more focused. I don't really waste as much time. There's more time in the day for me to fit more things that I do into the day. So like whether it's making TikToks or clipping stuff from Twitch, or if it's like updating things on Twitch or just promoting a stream or like even streaming in the first place. Like I think being in the pandemic has actually given me more bandwidth to do more. And with that, I've been able to just expand everything that I'm working on in different ways that I really didn't even think about prior to the pandemic. So it's kind of forced me to evolve a little bit in the way that I look at work and working with artists specifically. What about social media platforms like Trilla and TikTok, which really exploded during the pandemic? Yes. Yeah, I'm very pro TikTok. Trilla, I don't use as much, but only because I don't necessarily know that the community that's on TikTok is the same as the community that's on Trilla. And for me, I really enjoy the community on TikTok. Like I think I've been able to find some really amazing artists. I've been able to connect with really amazing artists and put them in playlists that I run, and even like send them to the Twitch stream and have them be a part of my Discord community. So I'm very pro TikTok. I think every artist should be on it. It's just a tool in the toolkit that you should be using. I don't think there's a reason you shouldn't be on it. I know a lot of artists are adverse to being on the platform because it feels corny or it doesn't feel like something they want to do. But at the same time, if everybody is doing it and that is the way that people are finding artists, you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot by not doing it. It's also a really, really good way for you to test what people want from you and what they like. So I'm very pro TikTok. I just think it's a good way as an artist to connect with your fan base a little bit more directly and make them feel like they can know who you are, which I think is long term the best way to build a really engaged audience too, is to just let them into who you are as a person. So yeah, And then what in your eyes does the future of your role look like? What's the next evolution of artist relations as we know it? I don't know. I think the future of my role lies a little bit more in traditional A&R. It's kind of what I love and what I want to do long term. So I think it's figuring out how to work with artists in a more hands-on way, with Genius involved as well, which hopefully we'll see happen in the next couple of months. We are working on some new projects that I don't know how much I can say about yet, but just keep an eye out. Like I'm pretty excited about what the next iteration of Genius looks like in 2022, and some of the stuff that we are going to be working on, especially when it comes to working with artists more directly than we have in the past. So yeah, I think the next evolution of artist relations is maybe just what it is now, but maybe more all-encompassing. I think we've started to see it even with some of these new tech companies now and the way they kind of have artist relations function, which is almost more of an A&R role as well, and figuring out artist partners and management of artist partners and stuff like that. So, depending on what we work on, I could see it being something similar. That's really all I can say about it at this point, though. But yeah, that is in a nutshell kind of what my job is, what my role is, and how I got there. I think, like I said, best advice that I can give to any young people who are trying to get into the business side of things is to really just dive into community first and foremost. There are a lot of communities that focus on independent emerging artists, but then also up and coming or, people in the industry, people who want to be in the industry. So I would definitely go check out the Digilog. If you haven't, they are an artist, or they're a global community of artists, creators, etc. that really do focus on artist education, as well as careers as well for people who are trying to get into the industry. They post and kind of accumulate all of the job openings week to week of things that are new in the music industry. So it's a good place for you to find entry-level jobs specifically if you are trying to get into the music industry. Definitely get at me at Kayvan MD on TikTok, Twitch, on Instagram. I have a Discord you should join called the Kayvan's House Discord community, which has playlists for the community playlists. We do a lot of like educational stuff in there. We talk about opportunities for artists, and just try and build more of a network and a community around people who are trying to make it in this. So definitely get at me. It was really nice to be here. And again, shout out to Fiverr. Thank you so much for doing this, and for the programming in general, but then also for the platform. It's really great. So if you haven't, please dive in, use the platform, find the stuff that you need. Who knows? You might find a great collaborator on Fiverr. All right. Peace.